Um, Good day, people. Once again, welcome to Monday Channels. I'm still your same boy. Adegula Rotimi is my name. Today we have with us Mr. Sulaiman Fasasi. Um, as we all know, we are preparing for the election. The election was supposed to hold on Saturday, 16th February. Prior to the election, 6 hours before the election, the Inec chairman, Mahmoud Yaqub, announced the postponement of the election based on logistics problems. It is this, in view of this, we intend to actually discuss how well INEC is prepared to actually oversee the polls. One of the things said by the INEC chairman was that if INEC oversees the polls on Friday, on Saturday, 16th February, they might not be able to oversee a credible election. This and other tribal issues are what we'll discuss today. Welcome, sir. Firstly, sir, looking at the 2015 general election, and now, we had a different chairman. We had the former INEC chairman, which was sorry, Atairu Jega. So we had Atairu Jega at the helms of affairs in 2015. Now we have Mahmoud Yaqub. And of course, we had a different government in power then. We had the PDP government. Now we have the APC government. Looking at all these changes that has occurred within the period of 4 years, is INEC still the same?
Well, thank you so much. I don't expect INEC to be the same because one important thing that we should note at this point in time is that don't forget that we returned back to democracy in 1999. And when you look at the trajectory of INEC since then, you see that in 2015 was a great improvement to what we had under Professor Maurice Iwu, who arguably conducted one of the worst elections in the history of this country. And in 2015, we had a lot of improvements to the extent that even despite the shortfalls that the people will notice, the ruling party then could not even challenge the result of the election in court. Not because there were no issues, but because there were no tangible issues to have gone to court, unless it will remain a mere academic exercise. Now, one would have expected that in 2019, then we will also have a kind of improvement to what Professor Jega did then. But it's quite unfortunate that an election will still be postponed. Don't forget, when Jega postponed his own election, it was on a key issue of security. Professor Jega was not even ready to, shift that election, if you remember very vividly. Not until when the security chiefs came and said, well, if you insist on going on with the election, then probably you'll have your own security to conduct the election. I think it was at that particular time that he had to back out and, of course, allow the election to be shifted. But here we are, 24 hours to the election, we still had the chairman giving us all the assurances in this world that even if the election will be holding immediately, then that they were ready for the election. Only, I think around 2:30 a.m., when the news broke and we had to postpone the election again. For me, what I can see there is that if there is anything we have learned, if there is anything we have learned as a nation from the 2015 election, it is that we have failed to learn from history. Because 2015 election was far ahead of the shortfall we have today. And unfortunately, when you begin to see what is coming out of the presidency, the INEC, at this point in time, it leaves much to be desired.
Thank you very much. Now, looking at the preparations made by INEC, we had series of talks, series of conference, series of, like you said, I remember the INEC chairman himself saying, even if the polls were to hold immediately, INEC is fully ready. Now, upon all those promises made, the election was again postponed. And according to the chairman, while addressing stakeholders, that was on Saturday afternoon, he said, based on logistic problems, he gave series of reasons for the postponement. Looking at this, it is to our own common understanding that when you're about to hold something or you're about to channel an event, you ought to prepare. And we now have another postponement now. How well or how would you rate INEC's preparation regarding the election?
Well, for me, except there are other reasons that INEC is not telling the public, uh, for me, there is no reasonable, with due respect to the professor of history, there's no reasonable reason for, postponing that election. One, you talk about logistics. For goodness sake, it is not my responsibility to put, in place this logistic. At any rate, INEC had the whole of 4 years to prepare for that logistics. Then how on earth would anybody now be telling me, or they want me to believe that the materials that is meant for River State find its way to Niger? Or that the materials that should be for Oyo State were not available? Then the question you ask is that what have we been doing in the past 4 years? For me, it shows that the INEC chairman is not really taking charge of the whole issue. Probably he has so much confidence in those other lieutenants he delegated the authority to. But of course, you see him a day ago taking up the logistics himself. It shows that as a chairman, he has also declared a vote of no confidence in the man who was in charge of logistics before now. And again, it's also a pointer to the fact that had him being the chairman was checking properly, probably he would have known or he would have realized that the man in charge of logistics was not crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And we might not be, of course, at this point. You see, this is not without acknowledging some of the great feats that the INEC at this time has achieved. But unfortunately, that cancellation of the election has robbed the INEC of the whole efforts that must have been put into the whole exercise. Now, one of the issues I really appreciate about this new INEC is the reduction in, or total cancellation of the usage of incident forms. Don't forget that there was this outcry that the incident form was largely used to manipulate the result of election in 2015. This is one of the arguments of the ruling party then, PDP. Now, the INEC is telling us that, yes, we are not using the incident forms again, and you can be rest assured that the card reader will perform very, very well. And in a situation where the card reader fails, in a GV, another card reader will be supplied to ensure that every voter pass through the exercise of the card reader, which for me, I think is a whole lot of achievement on the part of INEC, and so many other achievements that the INEC under the new leadership has actually achieved. But unfortunately, that cancellation has robbed the commission of the whole thing that they have put in place since 4 years ago. That shouldn't have come into place at all.
Thank you. Now, we've had series of cases prior to the election of crisis within political parties. We had one in Zamfara, whereby now APC has no governorship candidate in Zamfara. They have none in Rivers. We also have the PDP internal crisis here in Ogun, where we have the Lado faction, we have the Kashamo faction and all, where Inec came out and said, okay, fine, we are recognizing Kashamo as our own, as a legitimate PDP candidate. How well do you think Inec has actually balanced itself amongst all those crises and all?
Well, I think when it comes to party politics, the role of Inec is limited. And the only role that is played by Inec is the supervisory role. Let me take this party one after the other. But generally, let me put it in context, that in the history of this nation, the 2019 primaries by especially the major political parties is the worst in the history of this nation. As it were today, you have about 600 cases emerging for these primaries, about 600 ongoing cases, and you still have about 300 pending cases, which means in totality you have about 900 cases arising from parties' primaries in 2019, which of course I say again is the worst in the history of this nation. Now, when you now look at these political parties one after the other, look at APC that is cited, for example. I think the major problem with the APC is trying to eat your cake and have it. Yes, I give it to the new leadership of APC by introducing what they call direct primaries. You see, but the problem comes where you have a selective approach. Oh, that in this state, use direct primary. In that state, using direct primary. That is where the problem comes from majorly. Now, if you are bringing a reformation, why not in its entirety? Why not in its totality? As a person, to me, I might be wrong. It appears to me that the new leadership of APC had an agenda for which that direct primary was actually introduced. It appears to me that the leadership had an agenda. Look at so many cases. Look at cases in Oyo, look at the case in Ogun, look at Samfara, look at Rivers, and so many. Hardly is any one state in Nigeria today that they don't have one issue or the other as far as the APC primary is concerned. For me, it doesn't speak well of the new leadership of APC led by Adams Oshiomhole, even when everybody, especially the party people, will appreciate the fact that, yes, this new leadership is coming with a kind of reformation that will give a platform to all the card-carrying members of political parties to determine who is their either gubernatorial candidate or presidential candidate or what have you. Then on the part of PDP, I think the PDP has actually failed to learn from its past. The leadership has come under Uche Secondus has come out to say that, yes, we have learned our lessons. But for me, I think the PDP, the only lesson that the PDP has learned is that it has failed to actually learn any lesson. Why do I say this? Look at the case of Ogun State, for example. Somebody had a court judgment as far back as 2016, if I am right. That's about 3 years ago. Validating a particular executive. And the leadership of the NWC in Abuja wants to turn a blind eye to that particular court judgment. For me, Nigeria is not a banana republic, for crying out loud. And that is why it has become so difficult for them to deal with a Senator Buruji Kashamo. Because Senator Buruji Kashamo has the whole of the law behind him and behind the Engineer Bayodayo led State Executive Council. I think the PDP got it all wrong on, trying to upturn a case that is already statute bar. Statute bar because the time lag for the appeal has actually lapsed. For me, I think the party needs to allow the rule of law. And part of the rule of law is to allow a judgment to run its course. And of course, for us to actually respect that rule of law. Senator Buruji Kashama and his team, they have been to, several other courts validating that 2016 judgment. Until date, the National Working Committee is still insisting that, this is the person we are recognizing. For me, it is not good for our democracy, and it is not good for party politics in Nigeria.
Now, looking back into Inec's preparation, I know not a lot has to be said about their management. Aftermath of the postponement, there were reported cases of Inec staffs, especially the court members, being stranded in various locations where they were supposed to oversee elections. Now, majority of them were said to have slept in the buses and to hang around and things like that. All this should not have happened if things had gone down well. And Inec has come out to say it was due to the fact that the polls could not hold and the materials were already available at various polling units. It was just left to the RECs to actually disburse those materials to the core members and all the staffs. How laughable is this? And does this actually portray the fact that the INEC preparation is lagging?
Well, quite unfortunately, I think my immediate reaction, especially to the treatment melted with the core members, will be that, well, it's quite unfortunate, but the deed has been done. Probably that is their own prize of sustaining democracy in Nigeria. Apart from the core members, I saw a video that has went viral of a woman who prepares kono. And because the election was coming, the woman rather had to put all what could be a stock for the whole week. Had to struggle to make it available so that, yes, election is coming. A lot of people will be willing to buy and all lot of that. And of course, the woman also was stranded. If you look at the whole costs of that postponement, for me, it is unquantifiable. You have read on social media of people who had already fixed these dates for their wedding ceremonies. The fate, as it were today, is hanging in the balance, because even if those people sit down again and say, let us push it forward by a week, who tells you that the INEC will not come back again and say, for this reason and that reason, then we have to push this election date forward again? Who says so? And that is why some people have said that, if you are planning anything in Nigeria today, it is better you put INEC into confidence, so that you will be sure that INEC is not going to, disrupt the whole exercise. For me, we need to build our institution so strong that we won't be having this type of issues. For goodness sake, this is democracy in Nigeria for the past 20 years or thereabouts. Then if a 20-year-old person is still crawling, is unable to stand up, then there is a fundamental health issue. It is for us to look at what issues we have as a nation. I find a way of addressing it, facing it squarely and addressing it. That is when we can say that we actually are moving forward as a nation.
Okay, now, about 2 weeks ago, we had the incident of fire outbreaks. We had one in Abia, we had one in Anambra, and even Plateau. And I want to believe these are part of the logistic problems named by the chairman for the postponement of the election. however, it's blur to say any INEC staff would dare raise his or her office. And as a result of those incidents, INEC said over 4,000 card readers were burnt. Now, I want to believe these are perpetrated by external forces. Now, do you think all these external shortcomings and occurrences would actually hamper INEC's preparation towards the election?
Well, there is no way it won't, and of course it has hampered it because that is one of the reasons given by INEC. Even if for me that is unacceptable in the sense that over 4,000 card readers were burnt, I think in Anambra, and 24 hours to the election, nobody was telling us anything about what is going to happen in Anambra State. The election was cancelled on Saturday, and today, Tuesday, the INEC officials were telling us that, oh, the reloading of those card readers have been done and dusted, which of course means that, to reload, to present another 4,000 card readers, reload them by the information available by INEC officials might not be a too much task for them to do. And if somebody is coming to give us that as one of the excuses for which the election was postponed, you can see that there is a lot of a question mark on the sincerity of and the genuinity of those excuses they push to us. And that is why I'm saying that I am afraid probably there are other reasons, probably for security reasons or whatever, that the INEC might not be able to come out and tell us that, this is the main reason why we have been able, we had to cancel that result of the election. But for me, there was fire incident in Plateau. There was fire incident in Abia, not on card readers in those states, but particularly on the permanent voter cards. And some of those who claimed who were alleged to have actually done that, allegedly claimed that, they have to destroy those cards so that it will not be a tool in the hands of opposition to manipulate the result of the election. It happened the first time, it happened the second time, and of course we waited. We waited for another, in fact, more damaging to happen in Anambra State. You see, what happens to our sense of responsibility as a people, that once we've recorded the first incident, the second incident, we could not even fortify our materials to ensure that such an incident is prevented. I hope that INEC must have learned its lesson as far as securing the INEC offices is concerned. Because if that is not done, after those 3 incidences, one can only imagine how many of such offices might be a victim of attack even before the Saturday.
Still on the issue of the burnt materials and all, a report came in that there have also been the issue of people being caught with ballot papers and all. Yesterday, we had the Deputy Senate President, Ike Koremadu, saying his own hometown, which is Enugu West Central District, immediately after the elections, the postponement was announced, the result sheets went missing. So, because all these things begin to raise questions about INEC's efficiency in terms of resource management. Do you think it's so poor up to the extent when you say, okay, the election is being postponed, and all those that are in charge of those materials can't safeguard the material and they went missing? What is in play?
Well, let me say with emphasis that we cannot continue to put all the blames at the doorstep of INEC. If result sheets are missing, by who? by these same politicians that are raising alarm. You see, it is not about the institutions we have in Nigeria. Of course, we need to strengthen our institution. But of course, we are so ingenious in this nation, so much that we are ready to bypass any process. And that is why the result sheets will be went missing immediately after the election was cancelled. I am not saying that Inec officials might not be culpable in this, bearing in mind the fact that some of those who were involved in this manipulation in 2015, allegedly through the former Minister of Petroleum, Zani Alice Madueke, some of them are in prison as we speak, while some of them are still in various courts. As at the last time, I learned that over 300 staffers of Inec are being investigated for their involvement of what happened in 2015. Can you see that it's funny? That's about 4 years ago. If you are still talking about investigation in 4 years, then it tells us the kind of a nation we will find ourselves. But for me, I think I have an assurance from what the Inec has said. You see, one would have thought that, yes, transmission of a result through electronic means will have been an option. But when you look at the outcome of the election in the United States of America and how Russia was alleged to have actually tampered with the process of that transmission to manipulate the result of the election, you see that, yes, even transmission via electronic means might not also be desirable. But the assurance I have from Inec, I have listened to the Inec chairman, I've listened to a number of resident electoral commissioners, and if the assurance they are giving us is anything to go by, I think whoever must have stolen the result sheets must have done that at some risk. Why do I say this? Is the fact that the process this time around has changed. What is happening is that, yes, immediately you are doing your accreditation, you are voting. And of course, all the party agents, at the end of the election, we must be able to say that, oh, these are the numbers of people that have casted their vote. 30 people in this polling unit, for example, that you communicate to at the central point in Inec. And at the end of the day, whatever result you are bringing from that polling unit must not be more than that 30 people that actually voted. And the Inec is saying that if it is 31, apart from the fact that the whole result of that polling unit will be cancelled in its entirety, then whoever is the electoral or the polling officer there is also in trouble by, first being queried and going as far as a prosecution. Because this time around, like 73 political parties are contesting for the presidential election. In each of those polling units, you have 74 result sheets. One will be made available to all the party agents and one pasted on the wall of that polling unit. For me, if we can, follow this arrangement to the letter, I think the incidences of manipulation of result of election, ballot snatching, ballot stuffing will be reduced drastically because it will amount to nothing. But meanwhile, our security operatives must be up and doing. Because another thing that people can do is that when you know that you are popular in this particular polling unit, then somebody can just come, stop the ballot, so that the result of the election in that particular polling unit will be declared null and void, will be cancelled. For me, the security operative must also do their job, and all of us as stakeholders, critical stakeholders, include us, be able to do their own bid at preventing all this?
No. The election that was supposed to hold was postponed 6 hours. I think that was exactly around 2:45 a.m. in the midnight of Saturday. Now, onlookers and observers had kept on saying, okay, fine. We had the same case in 2011. We had it in 2015. INEC should have done all it could to prevent such incident from happening. Is that a question of incompetence?
Well, for me, I wouldn't say it's a question of incompetence, because when you look at the three scenarios you have painted, in 2011, it was different from what happened in 2015. 2015 was different from what happened in 2019. In 2011, I could recall that even in certain polling units, they have started counting their votes before that election was called off by Professor Atairu Jaga. But of course, in the case of 2015, it was a security issue. Don't forget that at that particular time, 14 local governments were in control of the Boko Haram. And of course, if we are not able to conduct election in 14 local governments in the north, then that gives a very valid reason, especially with the assurance from the security operative that, oh, give us a few more time, we will clear this area and we'll be able to, to hold the election there. You will see that, of course, it's very valid. But again, I still go back to my point that I want to believe that there are some reasons that the Inec chairman is not telling Nigerians in 2015. Because virtually all the points raised by Inec chairman for which this election was cancelled has been faulted. Now look at the case of the problem in landing problem. Bad weather that the Prof actually cited. The Minister of State for Aviation has come out to say that it was a lie, that we had good weather for the whole of the 24 hours on that very particular day. Almost every, and the valid question that a lot of people are asking is that why will you have to wait until 2 a.m.? Borrowing the words of Adam Soshiomole now, when every reasonable Nigeria will have been on their bed expecting, the election to happen the following day. Why waited until that very particular time? I think the Prof had too much confidence in his staff without really performing his own duty as the overall head by trying to cross-check information given to him. I think that is what happened. But in the whole analysis, the deed has been done. The election has been cancelled. We are waiting until Saturday to see what will happen.
Now, one of the things we are accustomed to, or the problems we face in our own country, is the issue of the independence of institutions, governmental institutions. Now, in relation to the postponement, different sections, different stakeholders and onlookers have come out to say, okay, fine, probably there's something behind the postponement. Some even said probably it's the work of the federal government coming out to say, okay, fine, we had nothing to do with that. At the time, a news circulated that the president would sack Mahmoud Yaqub. And also, looking again, yesterday, the national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, Adam Soshiomole, said he vowed actually in a statement that INEC informed PDP before postponing the election. Now, looking at this shift in blame games, the PDP saying, okay, fine, the APC federal government administration is behind the postponement, and Oshiomole coming back to say, okay, fine, I can swear INEC informed PDP before doing this. Now, all this amounts to pressure on the INEC chairman. do you feel there's something really at play for the decisions taken by the election?
Let me first say that you have to take all these statements by politicians with a pinch of salt. I can assure you that the only thing that will satisfy the PDP is to appoint one of its members as the chairman of Inec. Again, the only thing that will satisfy the APC is to probably make Adams Oshiomhole the chairman of Inec. And that is why when you begin to hear these banters, you just have to take it with a pinch of salt. For goodness sake, all these are dents on the image of this country and on the democracy of this country. If Adams Oshiomhole has a valid evidence to that allegation, let him do the appropriate thing by making the evidence available to security operatives. Then, of course, the PDP, if they also have a valid evidence to the effect of the allegation, let it make it available to security operatives. Let them do their job. You see, it is only Inec that must realize that, yes, on his lies the head that wears the crown. But unfortunately, I think the Inec must have enough observer to actually know that, oh, this is democracy. People are free to see whatever they like. Of course, this is, of course, our Nigerian democracy, which is peculiar to Nigeria alone. We are I mean, here is a lot of issues. The most important thing is for INEC to be focused to be determined and focus on what it is constituted to do. And whatever banter is coming from, they are expected. It should not be derailed. It should not be distracted by whatever Adams Oshiomhole or Secondus is saying. Be focused with what you want to do. Deliver the result to Nigerians. And at the end of the day, Nigerians will see that, oh, this job has been done perfectly. You see, it is not going to be an excuse that, I couldn't do this job well because of what Adams was saying or because of what Secondus was saying. Since it's not going to be any excuse, just take it with a pinch of salt, move ahead, and let us have a free, fair, credible, and acceptable election result at the end of the day.
Finally, during the briefing, that was on Saturday afternoon of the national chairman, while he was briefing the stakeholders concerned regarding the postponement of the election, the national chairman of the ANRP, who also happens to be their presidential candidate, raised a notion of technology involvement. Now, of course, that's not a new topic to us. We've been having series of talks, arguments, opinions on the fact that electoral procedures need to be improved with the use of technology. We had that several years back. Even in 2015, that was when the introduction of various gadgets were brought in place. Now, looking critically into all these shortcomings we've had, bad weather, this and that, even the INEC saying, okay, for coming out to say the election was actually postponed due to some issues and all. One of the issues that have been raised over time is that technology might go a long way in actually curbing or at least reducing all these shortcomings we're having. And of course, the last time, people might even begin to say, okay, fine, I don't think Nigeria is ripe enough to do all those things and all. Do you think it's time, at least, we should be seeing some steps that are being taken, significant ones, to actually say, okay, fine, we're actually preparing ourselves to technology advancement. But so far, that has been failing.
Well, I think if you look at it very critically, you see, Nigeria has been bending towards technology. Before now, we didn't have issues of the card reader, permanent voter's card, But if you look at that, you'll see that it is still part of the technology we are talking about. It's only left for us to, really, really move with other parts of the world so that we do things the right way. As it were today, it won't amaze you that the card reader we are using, according to the laws of this nation, is still an illegality. Illegality because it has not been captured in our Electoral Act. If you go and read the judgment of Wike in 2015, there was the judgment, and most of these evidences that were provided before the court were downloaded through the card readers. And the position of the Supreme Court was that, card readers not known to our laws. And that is the issue. You see, that is where we should start from. Let us start from the grand norm, which is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, tinker with it to ensure that the use of technology is captured. And of course, even in terms of security, when we are talking about technology, it doesn't really mean or only about transmission of a result via the web or via email or whatever. Even technology can be deployed as a form of a security. What happens if you will say, in all our polling units, we want to have the CCTV as a form of a security. We want to deploy drones to our polling booths to monitor activities and, of course, to review at the end of the day. For me, I think the world is overtaking Nigeria, and we have to be up and doing to move in line with other countries of the world. And the only way to do is through technology, not minding the fact that technology has its own disadvantages too. But of course, technology will solve that same problem that is brought by technology. For me, that is the only way to go. It will solve a lot of issues. It will prevent a lot of manipulations. It will also reduce a lot of spending on the part of Inec and on the part of the people. You see, how many millions of Nigerians are using phones today? If we cannot, in the corner of my room, send a text message to a central server in Inec to actually cast my vote, which is e-voting. For me, we are still running away from the reality. And it is better we face that reality, because the whole world is leaving us behind.
Now, let me put this to you on a final note. Do you think, based on all these issues, on the final note, sorry about that, this just has to be said. Now, after the postponement, a lot of words, a lot of thoughts, a lot of things have been creeping up regarding the time frame of the postponement itself, judging from all these things that have been coming to say, okay, bad weather, this and that, logistics and all. And some of those excuses given by the national chairman being actually being rebuffed by some claims that, okay, fine, this is a lie, this and all that. Do you think Inec might have rushed too much in actually giving a 1 week postponement? Do you think probably it should have been more?
Well, remember in 2011, the postponement was not up to a week. It was about 2 or 3 days, if I remember very vividly. And if I have to give any second look to all the reasons cited by Inec, the only reason is the mixture of these sensitive materials, where you have materials meant for rivers in other states and that of Niger in so many other states. But I think if this is major, these are things that can be addressed even within 24 hours. If still within this nation, it is an issue that can be addressed within 24 hours. But I want to believe, you see, we talk about bad weather. Nobody controls that. We must put that at the back of our mind. Nobody controls that. Even if we look at this weather forecasts, a lot of times they are failed. A lot of times they are failed in the weather forecast. You see, that is not within the control of human. But if it is about the mixture and every other thing, I think INEC must have taken enough time, uh, enough issues into perspective, and of course must have consulted very widely before coming out to say that, oh, a week will be enough for us. For me, it will be a surprise, and it will cast a lot of doubts, a lot of question mark on the integrity of INEC. If at the end of that 1 week, we are still telling this tortoise story. For me, let's give it to INEC. Let's hope that ceteris paribus, that Saturday will be Saturday, and the new will be done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sulaiman. It's been a nice time having this talk with you, sharing your view and opinion on trivial issues of INEC. And of course, the 23rd of February is still on the countdown. Political parties also have been allowed to continue their campaigns and all. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the better one. For mandates,